Remember when you used to queue for tickets for concerts? Your favourite band would come to town and, first time in a year or 2 years, maybe longer, and you would get there early in the morning and you would queue at the box office to see if you could get a good ticket. And some bands, in my experience, you queued longer than that. So for Genesis in 1977, for the Wind and Wuthering tour, me and a bunch of mates, we queued all night long in -5 C temperatures. It was really, really, really cold. It was incredible. But we got tickets for the front row. And in those days, what you got when you went to a gig and you'd queued for one of your favorite artists, you'd look at the front row, you'd look maybe 20 rows back or whatever it be, and you could just scan around before the gig started, and you would know every single person in those rows would be a dedicated fan. And those dedicated fans had queued up for their tickets, got there as quickly as early as they possibly could to see if they can get the best possible seats. Further back, maybe not so much, but certainly at the front end of the stage, you had the best and most committed fans. It's not like that anymore, is it? So now, what we find within the last couple of weeks has been lots of talk about Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band and this tour that's just been announced and the ticket prices for it. So I was reading Rolling Stone magazine just a couple of days ago, and there were some quotes from, as well as John Landau, the manager of Springsteen, but also by a spokesperson for Backstreets, the Backstreets website. So if you're a real Springsteen fan, you'll know about the Backstreets website. It's a fantastic resource. Puts up-to-date reviews of all of the gigs and the new releases and anything else that's in the news. It's really for hardcore fans and ran by hardcore fans. Anyway, in this Rolling Stones article, Backstreets have been quoted. So, quote, "This past week, too many Springsteen fans got thrown to the wolves, pushed aside in a way that seems as unfathomable as it is avoidable. The artist has maintained that he understands the essential role of his audience. How then did we end up facing, in far too many instances, prices for tickets that exceeded normalcy, then departed from reality entirely by orders of magnitude?" And the article goes on to talk about primo floor seats to the Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Poison triple bill at PNC Park in Pittsburgh will set you back $987.50. I saw Def Leppard supported by Motley Crue, supported by Steel Panther in Birmingham only about 5 to 7 years ago. Cost about £30. £987. The tickets are gone on sale by Ticketmaster. They set the rules. It's a monopoly business, and they've got a stranglehold on big venue ticketing. So, like I say, a long way from queuing for your favourite band. Because in Ticketmaster, you go on the website, or you phone up, but it's the website these days, isn't it? And then you're competing with a whole bunch of bots and touts who will hoover up the best seats, and then in the blink of an eye they'll be on some secondary sale site. So when you get to those gigs, the people at the front, they're not even the real fans, as the ones who've got the best connections or have paid the most money. So anyway, like most major ticketing companies, Ticketmaster has begun using dynamic pricing, where ticket prices fluctuate depending on supply and demand. During the recent Springsteen on sale over the web, fans saw $400 tickets become $5,000 tickets right in front of their eyes. The average ticket price was $262. $5,000 to see Springsteen. Anyway, I first saw Springsteen in 1981 at Newcastle City Hall, and yes, I did queue early in the morning, and I got a couple of fantastic seats, 2 or 3 rows back from the front in the centre of the balcony. A fantastic view overlooking the stage, because Newcastle City Hall has about a capacity of about 2,000 people. So really small gig for Springsteen and for the River Tours, as I've suggested, 1981. And I also managed to get apply for successfully tickets to go and see him at the end of the European leg of the tour, best part of 2 months later, on the 30th of June at Birmingham's NEC, where not 2,000, probably closer to about 8,000 seats in those days. Fantastic gigs. And then I've seen Springsteen on every tour ever since, bar the last one. I must have seen him, I've seen him all over the UK, seen him in Paris several times. Well over 30 times. So I'm pretty hardcore fan. Although, as you'll know, there'll be some real fans who will follow the tour around Europe or around America, and I'll have seen hundreds of gigs over the years. So I'm a kind of a bit of a hardcore fan who's also a bit of a lightweight. So, you know, I've seen him in arenas, stadiums, festival sites, and in theatres. So oftentimes, you know, I'd secure a place at the front, like I've mentioned at Newcastle, sometimes in the pit. Sometimes to get in the pit for a Springsteen concert, you would be you would queue all day long to maybe then get a wristband to get in, and so I managed to do that. You know, in Cardiff and in Glasgow. And also got a dodgy counterfeit wristband to get in at the Paris Bercy on the Wrecking Ball tour, where I was there for a couple of gigs, but one of the gigs were right down the front. So the ticket prices were never really outrageous. Even in recent years, I've not paid more than 60 quid a ticket, although I did pay over £100 to see him at Birmingham Symphony Hall in the late 1990s, performing solo on the Ghost of Tom Joad tour, which was worth every penny. So anyway, defending the ticket pricing, Springsteen's manager, John Landau, made a statement in the New York Times last week. In pricing tickets for this tour, we looked carefully at what our peers have been doing. He said, "We chose prices that are lower than some and on a par with others. Regardless of the commentary about a modest number of tickets costing $1,000 or more, our true average ticket price has been in the mid-$200 range," he continued. "I believe that in today's environment that is a fair price to see someone universally regarded as among the very greatest artists of his generation." John Landau, what a joke. I detest this comparing ticket prices for similar experiences. It's like going to see an artist you followed for years, maybe decades, come around to your town for the first time in years. It's kind of the same sort of thing as buying a ticket for Disneyland or Alton Towers. It's completely different. It's about a dedicated fans going to see an artist or a band that they've followed for years and are really keen and love the music. Buy everything, buy your t-shirts, buy all the music. They've got, like me, they've got an absolute raft of bootlegs, hundreds of live shows, and people are comparing it to, well, what's it like to go and see the Stones on this tour, or going to see Adele or something like that. It's not comparable. People who show up at these event gigs, I'm ranting here because I made some notes, I want to say this clearly. People are showing up at these event gigs aren't necessarily the hardcore fans. These gigs have become merely a middle class day out with friends. You know, back in 2009, I think it was, when I saw Springsteen in Hyde Park, the place was full of them. Even the crew that we were with, a couple of us were really hardcore fans, and the others, take it or leave it. It's like what Glastonbury has become. Back in the day, the headliners would be announced, and then the tickets would sell out, often increasingly sell out very quickly, but for years now, It's been more important to grab tickets on the day of sale, as soon as they go on sale, regardless of who may be performing. It's become a rite of passage for the middle classes. When this latest Springsteen tour was announced, a couple of friends suggested we consider travelling to Europe to catch one of the gigs. I held fire, I wasn't that keen, and lo and behold, it wasn't long before tickets were announced for some UK gigs, and the nearest for me would be Villa Park in Birmingham. But I've checked the ticket prices for Birmingham a couple of times when they first went on sale and just the other day. So checking the latest prices, we find they're around £300 a pop, with some available for £2,500. And remember, this is for an artist that peaked years ago. This is not a vital new artist making it really, really big. This is a legacy artist who's well past his prime. The last great tour was for Wrecking Ball, when a new album was showcased among with, deep cuts from Springsteen's catalogue, plus some cover versions as well. Fantastic shows, absolutely brilliant. But since then, Springsteen shows have become really, really predictable. Sometimes selecting a classic album to play from beginning to end, and he's done that with Darkness, Born to Run, The River, Born in the USA, and one or two times, the Wild, the Innocent, A Street Shuffle, or Greetings from Asbury Park. But the set list has become so predictable. The regular shows have drawn on an ever-decreasing song selection, becoming a greatest hit set, sadly with little of the invention or surprise of past tours. What must also be said is that Springsteen's powers are notably in decline. Gone are the days when he could leap around the stage and bellow and scream with a power that went all the way to the back. Like most of his contemporaries, he's getting on. His voice has become weak. And the notable exceptions to that rule are Paul Rodgers, the great Bad Company and free vocalist who's just incredible, Mick Jagger, Jackson Browne. And, the E Street Band as well is a shadow of its former selves. Had Springsteen offered a more intimate show along the likes of his New York residency of a couple of years ago, and maybe with a skeleton band producing new arrangements of some of his classic songs, and had some new album to showcase, that would have been great. And I would have been first in the queue, certainly for the bootlegs, for the live show, maybe not the live shows themselves, not at these prices, but certainly for the bootlegs, because it would have been really, really interesting. But no, instead, the fans are going to be served up with half-baked, inferior versions of all the songs they're familiar with, and no doubt with Springsteen's vocals enhanced by backing singers, in the same way that the strain was taken off the likes of Paul McCartney recently and Phil Collins on the Genesis Farewell Tour, and others as well. But they'll console themselves, won't they, these fans, because they'll be able to say that they were there. And for many, that's the reason that they paid through the nose for the tickets. Me, I'm done with Springsteen as a live touring artist. I saw him at the height of his powers, and his desire to keep playing stadium shows, to me, feels a little bit desperate. I won't be going to any of the gigs, and I'm sure I'm not alone. He doesn't need the money. After selling his catalogue for $550 million, he's got more money, his band's got more money. I'm sure they're all millionaires, and Springsteen hundreds of millionaires, maybe a billionaire by now. So, as far as I'm concerned, he doesn't need the money. And it's not a charity. I recognise it's not a charity. But he's a working class hero. Or he used to be. You kind of think that maybe he would have a little bit more of a story to tell about how he, unlike, say, the Stones or McCartney, he was going to be the guy who was going to present himself and his band with integrity. So this was going to be a gift to the fans after 2.5 years of lockdowns and disrupted tours. He was going to come out to break even, make a little bit of money for the promoters and maybe his management, but he wasn't going to be making loads of money. He was going to do it as a gift to the fans. Maybe the last great, I say great with inverted commas, the last E Street Band tour with a full band. Maybe. But he's not done that, has he? And one of the things that kind of winds me up a little bit is that, he's become a little bit, I'm not really interested in his politics other than what's within his music. In his 70s music and beyond, it was clear that he was looking out for the downtrodden, the people who were suffering in life, and people who were trying to get through life with dignity. And there was a compassion within his music. Now, that's still there, but as a celebrity, to me, he's become increasingly comfortable with not exactly flaunting his wealth, but not keeping it too invisible either. He used to be well known for showing up in New Jersey at gigs and guest slots and so on and so forth between tours, and he was very accessible and he would chat to people and so on and so forth. But in the last few years, when you see him and you see him talked about, it's like his horses, and he's dressed up to the nines, and you see pictures of him, and he seems quite comfortable with pictures being circulating of him on exotic yachts in the Mediterranean with the great and the good of the elite. I mean, fill in your own blanks as to who he might have been seen with. He's not really the man of the people now, is he? So, he's not completely to blame for the tickets, but he could have made the decision with his manager to say, we're not going to do stadiums. We are not going to allow our tickets to be sold for thousands of dollars. We're going to put reasonably priced tickets in the hands of real dedicated fans. So when I look out from the stage and I look at the front of the pit, I look at people who have travelled with me for the past 40 years. Instead, it's a bunch of middle classes with a plastic champagne flutes singing along to Glory Days. It's not for me.